Hello everyone, welcome to Sunday special class. The topic that we are dealing with is contemporaries of Shakespeare. Today, let's see about Edmund Spencer and his works. Edmund Spencer 1552-1599. His schoolmates include Kidd and Lodge. In 1579, he entered Leicester's service, where he became acquainted with Philip Sidney and poet Edward Dyer. In 1580, he became secretary to Lord Wilton, Lord Deputy of Ireland. The Shepherd's Calendar, 1579. He dedicated it to Sir Philip Sidney. It was published anonymously under the pseudonym Immerito. Immerito means unworthy. It is a group of 12 eclogues. An eclogue is a short pastoral poem that is in the form of a dialogue or soliloquy. So these 12 eclogues, one for each month, sung by various shepherds. So that's a format. It is an allegory symbolizing the state of humanity. The 12 eclogues dealing with such themes as the abuses of the church, Colin's, that means Spenser's shattered love for Rosalind, praise for Queen Elizabeth, and encomia to the rustic shepherd's life, are titled for the months of the year. The opening line of each eclogue expresses characteristics of the month, and the poem as a whole charts common accuracy of the seasons, the toil, and the celebrations of the village year. The precision of the description of birds, flowers, and harvest is balanced by an underlying theme of the hardships and rituals that each season entails. While the January pastoral tells of the unhappy love of Colin for Rosalind, the springtime of April calls for a song in praise of Elizabeth. In May, the shepherds, who are rival pastors of the Reformation, end their sermons with an animal fable. In summer, they discourse on Puritan theology. October brings them to contemplate the trials and the disappointments of a poet, and the series ends with a parable comparing life to the 4 seasons of the year. During the 1590s, there came The Ruins of Time, The Tears of the Muses. In the same year, Daphnida was published. It is an elegy on the death of Lady Howard. It's an imitation of Chaucer's The Book of Duchess. In 1594, he courted and married Elizabeth Boyle. In 1595, Amority and Epithelmian were published together. In 1595, Colin Cloud's Come Home Again got published. It is an autobiographical pastoral allegory. Colin Cloud is a rustic character created by John Skelton, appears in the Shepherd's Calendar and Book 6 of the Fairy Queen. Colin Cloud represents Spenser himself. In 1596, Prothalamian was published. In 1590, first 3 books of the Fairy Queen got published, and in 1596, 6 books of the Fairy Queen published together. A View of the Present State of Ireland, which was published in 1598, is a prose dialogue between 2 Englishmen, Endoxus and Irenaeus. It was not published until 1633. The theme of reformation of Ireland is being dealt. Spenser died at the age of 46 and he got buried at Westminster on January 13, 1599. Let's see what critics told about Spenser. Johnson said he writ no language. Milton appreciated the sage and serious Spenser. Charles Lamb labelled him as the poet's poet. Wordsworth's The White Doe of Rylstone shows his admiration for Book First of the Fairy Queen. W.B. Yeats referred Spenser as the first salaried moralist. T.S. Eliot, in his essays, 1932, Eliot conceived of the Fairy Queen as a poetic curio. The Fairy Queen. It is an incomplete English epic poem. The first half was published in 1590 and the second installment was published in 1596. The Fairy Queen is notable for its form. It is one of the longest poems in the English language and the origin of a verse form that came to be known as Spenserian stanza. It is an allegorical work and can be read as Spenser presumably intended on several levels of allegory, including as praise of Queen Elizabeth I. In a completely allegorical context, the poem follows several knights in an examination of several virtues. Spenser himself calls it a dark conceit. There is an introductory letter to Sir Walter Raleigh. It celebrates and memorializes Tudor dynasty. And the major influences were Lodovico Ariosto's Orlando Furioso and Torquato Tasso's Jerusalem Delivered. Spenser outlined a plan for 24 books. 12 books, each based on a knight exemplifying private virtues. 12 books based on King Arthur displaying private virtues. Arthur stands for magnificence. Only 6 out of the first 12 were completed. The first book deals with Red Cross Knight and his virtue is holiness. The second book deals with Sir Guyon. Temperance is his virtue. Third book deals with Triamond and Campbell. They stand for friendship. Fourth book deals with Artegall, who stands for justice. And the sixth book is about Calidore, and the virtue is courtesy. So book first is centered on the virtue of holiness as embodied in the Red Cross Knight. He and his lady Una travel together as he fights the dragon Error. Then separate as a wizard, Archimago tricks the Red Cross Knight in a dream to think that Una is unchaste. After he leaves, the Red Cross Knight meets Dusa, who pretends to be captured in order to trap him. Dusa leads the Red Cross Knight to captivity by the giant Orgoglio. Meanwhile, Una overcomes peril, meets Arthur, and finally finds and rescues the Red Cross Knight from his capture, from Dusa, and from despair. Una and Arthur help the Red Cross Knight recover in the House of Holiness, where he sees a vision of his future. He then returns Una to her parents' castle, rescues them from a dragon, and the two are betrothed after resisting Archimago one last time. Book 2 is centered on the virtue of temperance as embodied in Sir Guyon, who is tempted by the fleeing Archimago into nearly attacking the Red Cross Knight. Guyon discovers a woman killing himself out of grief for having lover tempted and bewitched by the witch Acrasia and killed. Guyon swears a vow to avenge them and protect their child. Guyon on his quest starts and stops fighting several evil, rash, or tricked knights and meets Arthur. Finally, they come to Acrassia's island and the Bower of Bliss, where Gion resists temptations to violence, idleness, and lust. Gion captures Arcasia in a net, destroys the bower, and rescues those imprisoned there. Book 3 is centered on the virtue of chastity as embodied in Sir Britomart, a lady knight. Resting after the events of Book 2, Gion and Arthur meet Britomart, who wins a joust with Gion. They separate as Arthur and Gion leave to rescue Florimel, while Britomart rescues the Red Cross Knight. Britomart reveals to the Red Cross Knight that she is vengefully pursuing Sir Artegel because she is destined to marry him. The Red Cross Knight defends Artegel and they meet Merlin, who explains more carefully Britomart's destiny to found the English monarchy. Britomart leaves and fights Sir Marinel. Arthur looks for Florimel, joined later by Sir Satyrane and Britomart, and they witness and resist sexual temptation. Britomart separates from them and meets Scudamore looking for his captured lady Amoret. Britomart alone is able to rescue her and reunite the lovers. Book 4 is centered on the virtue of friendship as embodied in Sir Campbell and Sir Triamond. Book 5 is centered on the virtue of justice as embodied in Sir Artegel. Book 6 is centered on the virtue of courtesy as embodied in Sir Calidore. Next work is Amority, which was first published in 1595 in London by William Ponsonby. It was printed as part of a volume entitled Amority and Epithelmian. The volume included the sequence of 89 sonnets along with a series of short poems called Anacreontics and Epithelmian, a public poetic celebration of marriage. Sonnet sequence on his courtship of Elizabeth Boyle over a period of 2 years. So Amority means little love. It follows the Petrarchan conventions to a large extent. And C.S. Lewis, among the most important 20th century Spenser scholars, said that Spenser was not one of the greatest sonneteers. Next work is Epithelmian. It was first written by Sappho. It is an ode written by Spenser to his bride Elizabeth Boyle on their wedding day in 1594. It was published in 1595. The ode begins with an invocation to the muses to help the groom and moves through the couple's wedding day from Spenser's impatient hours before dawn while waiting for his bride to wake up to the late hours of night after Spenser and Boyle have consummated their marriage, wherein Spenser's thoughts drift towards a wish for his bride to have a fertile womb so that they may have many children. Spenser meticulously records the hours of the day from before dawn till late into the wedding night. Epithelmian consists of 365 long lines corresponding to the days in a year. And the refrain is, "The woods shall to me answer and my echo ring." Next work is Prothalamian, which was published in 1596. The word was invented by Spenser, meaning spousal verse, to celebrate the double betrothal of Catherine and Elizabeth Somerset, daughters of the Earl of Worcester. The poem begins with a description of the river Thames, where Spenser finds two beautiful maidens. The poet proceeds to praise them and wishing them all the blessings for their marriages. Calm was the day, and through the trembling air the sweet, breathing sapphires did softly play. The poet is standing near the Thames River and finds a group of nymphs with baskets collecting flowers for the new brides. The poet tells us that they are happily making the bridal crowns for Elizabeth and Catherine. He goes on his poem describing two swans at the Thames, relating it to the myth of Joe and Lydda. According to the myth, Joe falls in love with Lydda and comes to court her in the guise of a beautiful swan. The poet feels that the Thames has done justice to his nuptial song by flowing softly. According to his request, "Sweet Thames, run softly till I end my song." It is written in Spenserian stanza, 8 lines of iambic pentameter followed by an alexandrine, that is a iambic hexameter. And the rhyme scheme is ABA, BBC, BCC. So that's all about Spenser and his works. In the next class, we'll deal with the university wits. Happy Sunday.